we apply it in the context of our prophylicity theory, right? That's the general peer. And the idea of the general peer is, again, that on the one hand, it's like general in the sense that it is not any particular individual. It was intended to be a little bit of a pun of the traditional notion of the general will, volonté générale, right? Which doesn't represent any individual will, any individual intention, but is like this kind of general will, right? And the notion of peer, of course, then comes from like peer groups today. Like we were, for instance, we are Paul and I. When I say we, Paul and I, who wrote that book together on prophylicity, we were thinking specifically because we're both professional academics, where we have this very important concept of peer review. Now, right, when you want to publish a paper or a book, and there's strong publication pressure on us, so that's that we are in this academic industry where we are exploited and have to produce that. But who do we write for? We write for the so-called academic peer, the peer review. But then in academia, the peer review the academic industry prouds itself of this double-blind peer review. So it's this kind of absurd notion that you write for your peers, but you're not supposed to know who your peers are, right? There's kind of this, that's the general peer. It's your in-group, but as opposed to the traditional in-group sincerity, where your in-group were the people in your village, the people in your sports team, the people in your religious community, the people in your military unit. Now, the peers we are dealing with in the academic industry are these anonymous, the general peer. So whatever you write when you work, again, I'm sympathetic to your Marxist approach, right? With Luhmann was not a Marxist, but that the idea is, you produce. But what's the market you produce for? You produce for this kind of general peer, who on the one hand is your in-group, but on the other hand is completely anonymous, and you're not supposed to imagine any particular individual. You always have to, and then people are also forced to act as a general peer, right? When they, review your paper and so forth. So that is the background of this term, the general peer. I hope that is clear. And it has to do with Luhmann, because, of course, Luhmann's social systems theory, that is, I think, key to his whole theory, which, by the way, the books and articles are completely unreadable. No one can read them like for the first time. There's just the writing is completely obscure. Anyways, a key idea there is that society consists not of individuals, but of systems of communication. That's, again, completely the academic peer review process. You're supposed to completely abstract from the individual, right? It's just like conventions, right? You have to write a paper in a specific way. You have to read a paper in a specific way. So basically, it's just a social system sets up like codes and programs. It's like a certain communication machine, and that you have to feed. And that's what a social system is. And that is it's a radically anti-humanist, Luhmann calls it himself like this, a theory of how society works. So that is a second major obstacle why Luhmann's theory remains so obscure. The number one obstacle is no one can read his texts. And then the number two obstacle is it completely contradicts, again, the Anglo-American. Now we're getting to the second kind of Anglo-American thing, not just hope. He's not, as I said earlier, not just hope or fear, but it completely contradicts the individualist conception of society, that society is kind of constituted as a sum of individuals and by their individual kind of agency. And Luhmann thinks radically different about society. He thinks it's these, like his approaches comes like from biology, like our bodies, right? Our arms and our heads, our whole body that we live in and with hasn't been created through our agency. It's a biological system that we somehow inhabit and in which we form a sense of self. But it's not been created by us in any way. It's created by biological evolution. And Luhmann has a very, very similar understanding of society, that just as our bodies are a process of biological evolution in which we had zero agency, likewise, society is the result, and the society that we inhabit is the result of social evolution in which we had also zero agency. And again, that completely contradicts the prevailing North American, in particular, view of what society is or should be. And these are the two reasons why Luhmann is not a mainstream theoretician at all, in my view.